Hi and welcome to another one of our Ask AJs. As you can see, Phil is not here, so Phil the cushion is sufficing. This Phil makes a lot more sense and he's actually a lot easier to co-present with, so we'll just leave him there. The other Phil, the real Phil, is out on valuations over in our fantastic Dales branch, and he is going here, there and everywhere looking at barn conversions and farms and lots of other beautiful homes coming to market. So who do you know who has a house for sale in the Dales or would like to sell or would like to move to the Dales? So today we're talking about plots, and I know you've had a bit of a teaser today, so we've had to rejig the entire day to make sure that we actually come to you and talk to you about plots, so building plots. The ins and outs, the advantages and disadvantages, what to do if you're selling, what to do if you're buying a plot, and also one of our actual plots that I can talk you through now. So we have a beautiful plot called Rowanthwaite here. That's my dog waiting to come in. You can let him in, Mac, it's fine. And my dog's a bit senile. He doesn't actually know if he wants to be in or out the room, so he just goes in and out all day long. He doesn't actually just like closed doors. In fact, what we need is a little Georgie gate in every single door in the entire building. Come on, George, come over here with me. He also isn't speaking to me because we bathed him this morning, Chris and I, and he was not happy. Was it, Chris? But at least he smells nice now. Yes, he smells nice now. He did not smell nice this morning, but he was not very happy, were you? But yeah, I think he's speaking to me again now because he's seen now, he's forgotten. He's had a bath. So Rowanthwaite is a beautiful 3-acre plot over in Crook. I should know the price of it. I think it's $1 million. Did you check? Mac's about to go and check and tell you whether it's $1 million or not. And you can put the link in the caption as well to it. What you actually get with Rowanthwaite is something very special, which is in the national park. It's 3 acres, which is very unusual, as in it's a very, very large plot. A 3-acre plot is huge. It's also got its own tarn, so it's got, I think it's 1 acre and a third of tarn with fish in it. It's stocked from a beck, and it's got a little jetty, and it's surrounded, the whole plot is surrounded by beautiful pine trees and deciduous trees, and it's got a double layer of trees by the road, which gives you a lot of noise reduction. £1 million. It's just been reduced. That's why I was just checking, because I know we're reducing it to 1 million, but it has just been reduced. It is an absolute bargain. It's probably the best plot in the Lake District if you're a private buyer, private builder right now. What else has it got that's unusual? It's built on a little bit of a hill, so you've got some opportunities to have a really beautiful build that's on several different levels. The original and existing actual planning permission for it is for something unbelievably big, which is about 10,000 square feet. It says in the brochure, proposed elevation. If you want a brochure, by the way, we'll send one to you. Just drop us a line at probably team@ashdownjones.co.uk. I think actually what the owner did, he's actually gone for a smaller plan permission. So we've now got the original plan permission, which is 10,000 square feet. This looks more like 4,000 square feet, which is probably more manageable for most people. The other one had a swimming pool and things like that on it. So what's that say? Yeah, 5,000 square feet. So much more manageable for most people. So what you need to consider if you're buying a plot, have you got the other one of these as well? Because the other one's actually got the original plan permission on it, which is in the boardroom. It's the one with the silver writing on it as well. Thank you. So first of all, if you think about buying a plot, availability of plot, there are very, very few available plots in the Lake District that are not a knockdown, by which I mean you'd have to find a house on a plot that you liked, and then you'd have to knock down the house with plan permission, of course, and then build again. That is what most builders, private builders and commercial builders do in the Lake District. They knock down and rebuild. Secondly, there's garden plots. So somebody could have a house with a garden that's too big for the house, or excess of garden, surplus garden that they can then hive off and turn into a garden plot. That's happened a few times. We're selling a house over in High Newton, and the next door neighbour to that has managed to fit 2 plots in his garden. Now he's selling those off separately, and this goes to a seller. If you think about selling a plot, if you want to sell 2 plots in your garden, you've got to think about who's responsible for the services. What if one stops building, the other one carries on? You know, all those kind of things. So it's quite difficult logistically to have more than one plot in your garden plot, but by that time it might not be your problem. Locations, definitely within the heart of the national park, there is almost nothing. If you were going to seek planning permission on something that doesn't have planning permission, one of the things you can consider is whether it's inside a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit and or within the actual parish of a village. Thank you very much. Because that makes a lot of difference. If it's inside the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, you're far, far more likely, 100 times more likely to get planning permission than if it's outside. Because outside, it's pretty much greenbelt. This is the original brochure for Rowan Folk because we've sold it twice in the last 2 years. And that was the existing house, but let me find. That is the proposed original dwelling. Now, if we compare this one at 5,000 square feet, that's the gym plan, there you go, that one, to that one. That one will probably cost you somewhere in the region of 500 to 700,000 pounds to build. Don't forget you've got the plots on top of it at £1 million. And this one will probably cost you more like 2 million, £2.5 million to build. So you can see you've got a bit of choice there. A lady did phone the office yesterday saying that she was really interested in the plot, but she would have to live in a tent on it, which I think would be a good idea. It's a beautiful plot. Okay, so locations inside a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit is much better for you because your restrictions will be less. Where there is existing infrastructure, so if you've got a little tiny single track lane and then it's the middle of nowhere and they haven't got main services, you're very unlikely to get planning permission on it. Or if you do get planning permission, it's going to be very restrictive with what you can put on there and what kind of services you've got to put in. And it could be very, very expensive if you do that as well. Size of the plots, well, if you have an acre plot, and this is 3 acres, you can either, let's say you're selling, you can either sell to Barratt's where they put hundreds of houses on it. Well, I don't know how many you can get on an acre, let's say 30 to 40 maybe, in which case, a £1 million plot for 30 to 40 houses doesn't sound very expensive. Or you can sell it to a self-builder or self-build, in which case obviously that's a lot of money to put against one house, and is the house going to be worth that at the end? Which might not matter to you if it's a forever home. So there's lots of considerations with costs, etc. Things like barn conversions. Barns are very difficult to get planning permission on, particularly in the Lake District, but anywhere really, because what they say is if you've used the barn for anything barn related in the last 3 years, then they consider it to be in use, in which case it's not surplus to requirement barn, and they would like to keep using it for your hens, pigs, tractors, whatever. If it's attached to another building like a farm, you're much more likely to get planning permission. Then I'm sure you've all seen there's beautiful barns in the middle of fields in the middle of nowhere. If you go up to Troutbeck, you can see them dotted across the hillside. The general consensus from planners is they would rather see those go to ruin than develop them. And I can understand that because it's part of the sort of the fabric of the Lake District, isn't it, to have these beautiful stone-built barns everywhere. So whether we like it or not, because obviously we'd love to sell them, it probably does protect the landscape having these sort of half-ruined barns and buildings in various places. Restrictions is a very, very big topic. I won't be able to do it justice in this Ask AJ, but I can tell you that in terms of new builds in the Lake District since about 1980, you will be restricted to only be able to sell that property to a local when you resell it. It doesn't mean you have to be a local to build it, but you have to sell it to a local. It's what's called our local occupancy clause here in the Lake District. Also applies to things like ex-council houses. And what they're trying to do there is stop developers coming in and building a huge amount of properties and then selling them for a vast profit that nobody in the local area can afford. So almost every single build since 1980, or if you've created a new build out of what's already there, that will come into the local occupancy clause. And to the extent that, so I don't know if you know, on the top of Helm Road in Bowness, there's a house called Beach Rock. When they were converting Beach Rock from a teeny tiny bungalow to a huge, beautiful slate and glass build that it is now, in the middle of that, there was supposed to leave one wall upstanding, because otherwise it was a new build and then it was a local occupancy clause, and the last wall fell down and they had to petition the planners, which took over a year, that it was accidental and they didn't mean to do it, so therefore the local clause shouldn't apply, and eventually they won. But that was a very hard won thing, so don't knock down your last wall. leave a few bricks upstanding. So that's what we mean by restrictions, what you can use it for. Also, the planners will have some strong opinions about whether you can use it for holiday let, not holiday let, only holiday let. We've got some only holiday let resorts here where you can only use it as a holiday let, and that might be restricted in the number of weeks per year you can use it. There's different ones, I think there's a 16, 32, 48, etc. So you can only use it for certain weeks a year, just like a static caravan on a caravan site. Challenges are things like logistics, utilities. If you've bought, say, an old farmhouse that has had its own private water supply that nobody's questioned for 50 years and its own private sort of drainage and sewerage system, you may have to get that whole thing overhauled now, so that it complies with most recent legislation. And especially true of septic tanks, because there's been new septic tank regulation about 3 years ago now, where if your septic tank is within so many meters of a water source, it has to be a particular kind of septic tank, and it also has to be changed every so many years and emptied and all the rest of it. Whereas in the olden days, you used to just put a big sieve in the middle of a field and the holes would drain away the effluents, naturally. That can't happen anymore. Same with private water supplies. There is a law that says they have to be tested every 2 years, and you have to pay for that testing to make sure you don't have any nasties in your water supply that you could poison your guests with. What else have I got on there? Planning permission. I think we've already covered that really with the restrictions. Types of plots. So think about what the plot is going to give you in terms of, say, views, access, but also the challenges it's going to give you with things like the steepness of the plot. So there's a beautiful house that was for sale a couple of years ago that Phil and I went to see on an incredibly steep plot. I mean, it was so steep I didn't actually want to drive my car up to the front door. That's how steep it was. If it had been a ski run, it would have been a black run, definitely. Even trying to walk was, on the driveway was a challenge. Now, I can see that would make an amazing plot with some incredible views if you could terrace it all, but can you imagine the logistics of having to do that, of all that shoring up and making sure it was all secure? So, it's all pluses and minuses, isn't it, in costs and benefits. Lending is also pretty tricky, very generally, and obviously this isn't a mortgage advice, I promise you, and every lender will treat it differently, but usually if you cover the money for the plot and you can get your property to foundation, you can then remortgage at that point. What they don't do is they don't release the money in advance of you needing it. They release the money in stages after you've completed each of the stages, and they have usually about 5 stages, and they will give you the money in arrears for each one. So let's say you need a £500,000 mortgage on a £1 million plot and build, then it could be that you get 5 releases of £100,000 a time, but you have to have got the plot and the build to that level first before they give you it back. So in other words, you have to be self-funded at first. And in terms of what it's worth at the end, if you're building it for yourself, generally speaking, you might be making decisions that adversely affect the future value of the property. If you are building it for a commercial use, in other words, to sell, then please talk to us, because we'll be able to tell you where you can maybe cut corners, where you need to go all out, and what matters to a buyer in this day and age. And actually, sorry, I've got some more things that Ed would ask me to go through. Importance of having planning permission if you're selling a plot. The challenge you've got here, and we've actually got one of these over at Natland at the moment, is if you apply for planning permission on a piece of land that you own and it's refused, the land is worth less than if you don't know if you could get planning permission or not. But a land where you don't know whether you can get planning permission or not is worth less than a land with planning permission. So there's 3 stages there. What I would do is talk to a planning consultant first before you put in for planning permission, because if you are likely to be refused, you're better off selling it without planning permission and let it be somebody else's problem. How we would market a plot, well, you've seen. We would market a plot beautifully is the answer. This is Rowan Thwaite. This is how we market it. Lots of CGI, which stands for Computer Generated Imagery. Just checking that I knew that. Lots of lifestyle-y kind of hints and tips. This costs us a lot of money to put this CGI together. I think it was It was quite a few thousand, but you can see the rendering is beautiful on it, otherwise people can't really imagine it. We've also had more, or given more tours of that plot than I care to mention. Make sure it's dry when you do it, that always helps. How to work out potential build costs, I'll let Edward cover that on a different Ask AJ, that seems to be a big topic. Viewings, how they're different from plots, I think we just covered that with wandering around, getting people to imagine, maybe taping out the plot size, although it always looks smaller as a plot than it does as a finished house, so bear that in mind. And that's it really. I think that's all the things we want to cover about the ins and outs of buying and selling a plot. The most important thing is you ask an expert advice, and we are here to give you our advice anytime you want. We don't charge for our advice, we don't charge for a visit. If you are selling, we can come and visit you and tell you what we think of your plot or potential plot. And if you're buying, same, we're very happy to help you as well. So just give us a call in the office, 015 394 88811, and that's all about plots. And Phil has lost the plot, well, he's not here. I'm sure he'll be back for the future Ask AJ. If you've got a question that you would like covering on Ask AJ, ask us, and me and Phil will have a good job at answering it. Have a good day. Bye for now.